officially get going. And thank you everybody for being here today. I'm very excited about today's workshop. You know, this is the last semester of the QEP. Hard to believe 5 years has flown by. And you know, all of us who've been involved in this and teaching this, we all recognize sustainability as understood through the triple bottom line is interdisciplinary. And we all bring our strengths to those three legs, social, environmental, economic, and all recognize we have some more work to do. And I know for myself, the economic leg of sustainability is when I struggle with the most. And I think other people share that experience. And so really excited to have one of the champions of sustainability on campus be able to give us a workshop on, okay, well, how can we simply and concisely bring the economic leg into almost any lecture? And that's Marcia Snyder. Marcia actually was on a subcommittee for the QEP, the assessment subcommittee, so has been involved with this since day one. Marcia is also Assistant Dean of Student Learning for the School of Business and Senior Instructor of Finance and Economics. Just a brilliant scholar to think about this stuff and teach it to students in the world of finance. So really excited, Marcia, to have your expertise. And we'll hand it over to you. Y'all hold question. It'll be like probably a 30-minute sort of overview and modeling. So take your notes, throw questions in the chat box as they come up or write them down. The second half will be interactive, dialogue, discussion, and chance to address questions. So Marcia, thank you everybody for being here. Marcia, thank you very much for your time and wisdom that you're going to share with us today.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you everyone for coming, especially since it's a Friday afternoon and I know nobody wants to be here. Meta, if you could help me out with the chat, if there's any questions, I'd appreciate that.
Will do.
And so today, let's see, I got to fix this a little bit here. So today we're going to be looking at, can you all see the screen? Okay. I'm going to identify the differences between the current capitalism paradigm and movement toward a regenerative capitalism that's occurring. I'll differentiate the categories of disruptions in the business world and the impact of these disruptions on the environmental, social, and economic systems. And then finally, I'm going to relate what businesses are doing to create positive impacts on the environmental, societal, and economic systems, and how we can use this information in the classroom. At the end of the presentation, I have a list of resources with links that I use in the classroom, as well as a list of the sources for the information that's presented. As I was preparing this presentation, I ran across this cartoon that unfortunately rings all too true. We are entering a point of no return when it comes to climate change and our response to it. And because of this, businesses have to do something. They have to do something now and start participating in the solutions for these problems. So the triple bottom line, just as a review, is a phrase that was coined in 1994 by John Elkington. This was a challenge to business leaders to rethink capitalism by expanding their business management focus from just the financial bottom line of their companies to include the societal and environmental impacts of their companies. The TBL began as and was intended to be a systems change challenge to businesses. The focus was to create breakthrough change, disruption to traditional capitalism, asymmetric growth that would sideline unsustainable sectors, and the scaling of next generation market solutions. Elkington issued a recall of the management concept in 2018. It's not working as it was intended. TBL morphed into an accounting system in which CEOs and CFOs considered environmental and social reforms only after they hit their profit targets. In other words, accountants and consultants diluted the TBL concept into routine accounting reports that lacked the aggregation and analysis to help decision makers and policymakers track, understand, and manage the system effects of their decisions. In the 1980s, Milton Friedman stated that there is one and only one social responsibility of business, and that's to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits, so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say, engage in open and free competition without deception or fraud. Well, businesses have not played by the rules. And in part, that's because government and regulation did not do their part to enforce those rules. Capitalism and free markets have failed because of monopoly power that leads to higher prices and lower output of goods and services, and negative and positive externalities that are costs and benefits that are not accounted for in the business's financial statements. As a result, we've seen extreme inequality, excess materialism, environmental damage, resource overuse and depletion, focus on short-term profits, and boom and bust business cycles. Now, as we begin to envision a better way to design a new economic system, one that can help us be more regenerative, we need to understand some of the terminology. In 2007, Nassim Taleb published his work defining black swan events. These are extreme impacts of totally unexpected bad stuff. He outlined the three core attributes of a black swan event as an outlier because nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. They carry extreme impacts to society and the economy, and they are something that can be rationally explained after it occurs, but not before it occurs. Dealing with black swans goes beyond just building resilience, but becoming anti-fragile. Anti-fragility is the ability to turn a bad event or bad thing into an exponentially positive building response, whereas resilience tends to maintain the status quo. The crash of the US housing market during the 2008 financial crisis is one of the most recent and well-known black swan events. The effect of the crash was catastrophic and global, and only a few outliers were able to predict it happening. Now, Taleb's theory went on to become a fashionable way to classify all catastrophes. Then some observers began to note that not all big things that happen are out of the blue and completely improbable. Instead, some of the events are clearer and slightly easier to predict. And so from there, the terms gray and white swans were born. Gray swans are not viewed as entirely improbable, meaning there is a possibility of their occurrence beforehand. They can be positive or negative and significantly alter the way the world operates. That's why we are urged to take them seriously. Examples of a gray swan would include natural disasters like Katrina, Britain's unexpected decision to leave the European Union, or Donald Trump winning the 2016 US presidential election. The outcomes of these type of events cannot necessarily be predicted with ease, but they are events that are probable and could happen. The COVID-19 pandemic is also an example of a gray swan event. Pandemics are rare but well acknowledged risk that the world has experienced repeatedly in the past, from the Justinian plague to the Black Death and the Spanish flu. though the risk of a pandemic in any given year is estimated to be quite low based on past frequency, they can have dramatic and transformative effects on the economy and society. Gray swans can be managed by building what Talib refers to as resilience or robust capabilities. Think about the problems with the supply chain as a result of the COVID-19. Financial buffers, surplus production and supply chain capacity, built-in redundancies and real options can help to withstand the impact of gray swans. A white swan is an event that is almost certain to happen. So in 2017, Kate Rayworth published her book, Donut Economics: 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. The book describes the creation of a new form of regenerative capitalism that will replace the traditional capitalism we experience today. We need to rethink what profit and profitability mean. We can't continually have a goal of more or endless growth. Instead, we must be thinking in terms of creating a system that is thriving in balance within its social foundation and the natural world in which we live. To achieve the paradigm, we need to develop transformational strategies and mindsets with systems thinking at the core. We need to create transformational innovation processes with empowered co-creativity, agility, and smart experimentation at the edges. And then finally, we need to support transformational leadership, culture, and structure distributing caring, ownership, and responsibility. From the economic or business perspective, this means that businesses need to leverage exponential technologies for scaling and distributing social impact and commercial value. While some businesses are becoming more responsible and less destructive per unit of production or profit, they must now become radically more economically inclusive, socially just, and environmentally restorative, not just aware of the environment impacts, but restoring the environment. So this is where John Elkington, our TBL guru, has envisioned a management strategy of the Green Swan event to push society toward a more regenerative form of capitalism. Where black or gray swans are typically degenerative, green swans are considered regenerative. They evolve as responses to black or gray swans, and they take the world by surprise because of their exponential nature and because they produce outcomes that were considered to be impossible. Green swans stray into the territory of miracles, and a miracle is something that is impossible from one's current understanding of reality. Now, to build an economy focused on creating green swan capabilities, we need to cultivate regenerative ugly ducklings. So ugly ducklings are embryonic innovations and ideas that can take us into various trajectories. They could be good, bad, or ugly. We want to cultivate the good ones. Businesses many times dismiss these innovations as folly and their inventors as dreamers instead of visionaries. These are critical new technologies and innovations we need to develop and channel toward green swan outcomes. So in order to do that, we need visionaries and disruptors. The question is, can our education system foster these? What can we do to help build these visionaries and disruptors? So this is an illustration of what a paradigm shift where an old model dies and a new model emerges might look like. Our sense of what is normal has been turned upside down. Our thinking and priorities are having to catch up with the fact that we're living in a world faced with catastrophic environmental and social change. This changes the business environment profoundly and forever in terms of the market. We are in the model revolution stage right now, where there are new rules to the game. And just like in the natural world, businesses must adapt or die. And the question is, can we speed this shift up and move toward that total paradigm change? So Elkington is a business consultant who has worked with CEOs and CFOs of many of the major corporations around the globe. He's very well known as a change maker and helps lots of businesses. Change is really difficult for business leaders, especially when the C-suites only hear what they understand. From his advising experience, Elkington outlines the evolution of our current paradigm shift toward a regenerative economy. He notes that there's millions of companies that fall into the rejection category of change. The new reality is so different that business leaders can't comprehend it. Evidence of this rejection is illustrated in the major shifts in company rankings from 2009 to 2018. Back in 2009, in the early years, ExxonMobil was #1 in the business rankings, the top capitalized country in the world or company in the world. They have fallen to #9. Walmart went from #2 to #13. Procter & Gamble from #4 to #23. In 2018, the top 4 in this market capitalization were Apple, Amazon, Alphabet or Google, and Microsoft. All these companies have embraced a regenerative philosophy. They may not be there yet totally, but they are moving toward that. And as a result, their business has thrived. The next category, tens of thousands of companies fall into the responsibility category. And leaders don't want to be seen as irresponsible, so they make some changes. A lot of times these are just small changes, or they say they're doing something and they may not be doing it, but just they don't want to be seen as irresponsible. So they're attempting to make some changes. Then we move on to thousands of companies fall into the replication category. These companies have activist CEOs and CFOs who are building new business-to-business platforms to create codes and standards and speed up the process. And we'll talk about a couple of those in a minute or two. And then thousands of companies also fall into the resilience category. Think of the supply chain problems that we're facing now. Resilient firms are agile enough to change direction to meet these conditions. And we see that there are many companies who are able to do that. And then we fall into the regenerative category. There's probably only a few hundred companies that are truly moving into that category. And the problem is that we need a system-wide support system to allow regeneration to flourish. So this is a truly system change, and we certainly aren't there yet. The first 4 categories represent a triple bottom line thinking. And the 5th category is our green swan thinking, where we're, instead of checking boxes, we're actually pushing toward being able to replenish and restore what we've lost while building economies and communities. So it's a restorative and a regenerative capacity. This slide illustrates the evolution of business views of the economy and the triple bottom line. Traditionally, in a traditional capitalism, shareholder value was top. I remember when I was first teaching finance, finance was all about deriving profit for shareholders. Shareholder value was tops. All of the finance books talk about that. Financial returns are all that matters. Companies privatize gains and externalize losses. Now we're seeing more shared value governance, where business and financial performance is still first, but integration is becoming more important. And while it's still limited, some of the negative impacts that businesses have are set against good works elsewhere. So they're kind of moving into a more shared governance. Where we want to go is a system value where business in no way hinders and ideally contributes to society's progress toward a thriving regenerative society, and businesses will serve society instead of taking from society. Businesses have quite a way to go to reach that system value. And in order to reach that, we have to build the system. Now, Paul Pullman is former CEO of Unilever. He's co-founder and chair of the Imagine Group and chair of the International Chamber of Commerce, the B Team, and the SAID Business School. He basically states that the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals are the world's greatest business plan. It's time to embark on a decade of delivery that ensures we fully realize the 2020 development agenda. And while the moral case is overwhelming, the economic argument is equally compelling, as the cost of inaction already significantly exceeds the cost of action. So how to convince businesses that sustainability and regenerative capitalism are good business? Well, Accenture estimates the value of implementing a circular economy to be about $4.5 trillion globally. Analysis by the We Mean Business Coalition has found that implementing the Paris Agreement will unlock at least $13.5 trillion of economic activity in the energy sector alone by 2030. A recent paper by the Generation Foundation put it this way: these opportunities do not come at the expense of profits, but have often been the basis for identifying new business initiatives. This underscores what we have observed more generally to be true with great companies. Sustainability is a tool for growing revenue and profitability while strengthening their competitive position. So sustainability is no longer a cost center. It's moving toward becoming a profit generator. Now, one of the new sites that is really dynamic and I'm really excited about is Project Breakthrough. Businesses, this is the Project Breakthrough compass. And we can see here that we have incremental change at the bottom, exponential change at the top. We want to move our change into this breakthrough, where a breakthrough change is a change that is dynamic. It affects 10 times or 100 times, has as much impact as an incremental change. And we want to impact those billions of people positively. And it's important that businesses start thinking exponentially instead of small incremental impacts. In support of the vision, a partnership between the UN Global Compact, Volans, and PA Consulting created a sustainable business platform. I've got a link to the platform in the slides. Project Breakthrough is a call to companies everywhere to align their operations and strategies with 10 universally accepted principles and to take action in support of the UN SDGs. The website spotlights the best thinking and examples in sustainable innovation that demonstrate a commitment toward exponential scale of change and impact across mainstream companies and next generation innovators and entrepreneurs. There's videos and case studies that spotlight some of the most exciting pioneers of breakthrough thinking and action from around the world. They are adding new sections all the time. These feature accessible and actionable briefings about transformative business models. So they actually help companies transform their business models to a regenerative model, and to help them develop these disruptive technologies that will support the SDGs, as well as showcase the journeys of young professionals participating in the Breakthrough Innovation Challenge. They will be having new resources on exponential mindsets will be added soon to this website. So it's a really cool website, and students like this website. It's a neat website for students. So why is the movement towards sustainability all of a sudden taking off? In 2021, the World Economic Forum highlighted new research showing that support for sustainable business is growing in both developed and developing countries. Today, consumers around the world do want to live more sustainably. Many expect businesses to play a positive role in society and feel that when it comes to driving positive change, brands bear as much responsibility as governments do. The study estimated that nature is worth $44 trillion. Nature positive transitions for food, infrastructure, and extractives could generate $10 trillion in annual business value through 2030. That will create 395 million jobs. The sustainability market in and of itself will generate $12 trillion per year in market opportunities by 2030. This has all been consumer driven. 66% of all respondents to their surveys and 75% of millennial respondents consider sustainability when making a purchase. In China, 41% of consumers want eco-friendly products. In the UK, ethically and sustainably sourced goods are worth about 200 billion pounds a year. The Nielsen, in 2019, Nielsen Sustainability Imperative Survey estimated that consumer brands that demonstrate a commitment to sustainability outperform those that don't, and that consumers will spend 150 billion on sustainable products by 2021. 73% of global consumers say they would definitely or probably change their behavior to reduce their impact on the environment. 41% of consumers are highly willing to pay more for products that are natural or sustainably produced. In 2021, Nielsen IQ survey followed up, and they note consumer preference is driving entire industries to change, and no market or sector is unaffected. Look at the change in consumer preference between 2019 and 2021 for environmental and sustainable products, a 26-point increase. Socially responsible, 18-point increase, 17-point increase for supply chain transparency. Transparent about the purpose of the business, 15% point increase. So those are really big changes Then there's new research that was published last May by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and it was commissioned by the Worldwide Fund for Nature. And it measured engagement, awareness, and action across 54 countries, covering 80% of the world's population. The research included surveys, Google Analytics, 36 million Twitter geolocated data points from 2016 to 2020, and editorial content from international, national, and local news media. The results indicated that hundreds of millions of people all over the world are concerned with biodiversity, and the number is growing. The most dramatic growth in engagement and awareness has occurred in Asia. Most notably, India had a 190% increase, Pakistan 88%, and Indonesia 53%. People all over the world care about nature, and the trend is growing, especially in emerging markets. The shift in public sentiment reflects a hard reality, as people in emerging markets are most likely to experience the devastating impact of the loss of nature. So before, when we thought that people in emerging markets didn't care about the environment because they couldn't afford it, that's not the case. That's totally wrong. The number of nature loss conversations has grown, as seen in 65% increase in Twitter mentions since 2016. Nature loss and biodiversity issues are gaining more traction online than ever before, with the number of Twitter mentions increasing mostly in emerging markets. Major influences around the world, including political figures, celebrities, and religious leaders, are using their platforms to amplify nature issues, with messages reaching a combined audience of almost 1 billion people. And consumers are changing their behavior, with searches for sustainable goods increasing globally by 71% since 2016. Corporations are responding. And finally, between 2016 and 2018, global news media coverage of nature-based protests grew by a steady 7%. Between 2018 and 2019, however, coverage jumped 103%. One of my favorite sites that I use just about at least weekly in my classes is an innovation platform that facilitates change to business models, and it's called BCorp Certification. The certification is not a product or service level certification, it's a company certification. It measures a company's entire social and environmental performance. The B Impact Assessment evaluates how a company's operations and business model impact workers, community, the environment, and customers, from supply chain and input materials to charitable giving and employee benefits. And it actually is a verified performance that has to be repeated every 3 years. They highlight different companies. This is something that they have the resource to help companies, however large or small they are, build sustainability into their business and maintain long-term improvement, continuous improvement in sustainability. It's a great website. And the other thing that they offer in this website that my students especially liked, they have a BeWork website that links employers and potential employees who want to work for a company that is sustainable together. And the students really liked that website. And then finally, there's lots of companies moving toward more regenerative business models. Engine number 1, with only 0.2% of Exxon shares, this activist investment firm won 3 board seats, and they are changing Exxon's direction from inside out. Pullman was the first company to develop and open source its environmental profit and loss statement software, and they post this online every year. Amazon will be carbon neutral by 2040. All operations will be powered by renewable energy by 2030. Microsoft hopes to be carbon negative by 2030, and they have a $1 billion fund to accelerate carbon capture technology. Novartis has published financial, environmental, and social impact valuation data since 2016, and they also offer open source software. So these companies that are moving toward being regenerative not only develop these new ways to measure value, they share them with the public. And Apple intends to be carbon neutral for supply chain and products by 2030. And right now, all corporate operations are carbon neutral. Like I said, I use the Be the Change in class all the time, Project Breakthroughs, another resource. I love newsletters. The students love the newsletters. They're short one-topic articles. It's easy for the students to read. It gives them new ideas, and then they go and look at, because the articles are so short, it doesn't give you all the information, but it encourages students to look at more. Resources for the Future is another one I use, and Medium. And most of these, well, the Bloombergs are free. Resources is a donation, and Medium is $5. Okay, that's it for my presentation. I guess I'll open it up for some discussion.
Thanks, Marcia. Maybe we can stop recording now, because I think the rest is interaction, right? The next 20